All right, Larry Krueger here. We're from the Pig and a Pickle Krug Show with a little 49er video as we look at some veterans that the Niners may or maybe should have some interest in this spring to round out their 53-man roster in preparation for the 2025 season. We'll hit that coming up next. But first, we're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. or until they run out. And they do run out. So get there early, get some brisket chili. Tell them that Krug sent you. We're also brought to you by Claw Daddy Arcades. That's right, Claw Daddy Arcades. They're a great follow on Instagram at claw_daddy_arcades to find a location near you. They got 3 locations in Southern Cal. They got a spot in Fresno, one in Modesto, and they got a brand new arcade coming here in the Bay Area. So check them out on Instagram at claw_daddy_arcades and find that location near you. And we're also brought to you by LearnKey Upskill Academy. Great news for Krug Show subs. Our sponsor, LearnKey, is offering a free cybersecurity course valued at $99. The course is titled Protecting Yourself and Your Organization. It's just 1 hour long and gives you essential tips on how to keep you and your company safe online. So it's a limited time offer. Don't miss out. Click the link in the description of the video and claim your free course and start learning today at upskill.learnkey.com. And we should tell you that all of the links for all of our sponsors are listed in the description below. All right, let's talk a little bit about the 49ers. I thought it was a pretty good draft. Really did. I thought they got a lot of the holes that they needed to be filled. And right now, as it stands, the Niners are the plus 150 favorite to win the NFC West. Rams are plus 185. Cardinals are plus 500. Seahawks also plus 500. This is according to DK Sportsbook. So the Niners are the favored team to win the NFC West, despite the fact they had so many departures in the offseason. So I thought it was a pretty good draft. They really attacked the defensive line. Alfred Collins, obviously C.J. West, Mikael Williams. They attacked the offensive line a little bit with Connor Colby and Drew Moss after the draft. I thought that was a nice pickup. Upton Stout, I think, gives them a nice nickel corner. I really like the Nick Martin pick. Marquise Siegel is a 4-3 safety. That's interesting. Junior Bergen is a hand-picked return man by Brant Boyer, the Niners' new special teams coach. So obviously he likes Bergen. I would imagine Bergen's going to have a place on this team. So what do the Niners need? Because there is no perfect roster, but the Niners, I'll say this, I think the roster looks pretty good. But it could always be upgraded. So, and the Niners might be looking for a couple veterans between now and camp. Now, there was a note today that the Bengals are expected to release the veteran linebacker, Jermaine Pratt, at some point soon. Yes, the Niners added Nick Martin, but if you could get a Jermaine Pratt, he had 143 tackles last year, 2 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, veteran linebacker who can really run and hit. I like that player a lot. I mean, Jermaine Pratt would be a really nice addition to the Niner linebacking core. I don't think it's essential, but that would be a nice addition. There was a pretty interesting article. First of all, the Niners offseason gets rolling as far as there's OTAs, rookie minicamp May 9th and 10th, and then OTA workouts May 27th and 28th and 30th, June 2nd, June 3rd, and June 5th. And then there's mandatory minicamp June 10th and 11th. And then after that, they shut it down until training camp starts. So, this is an interesting time for the 49ers for sure. And they may be in that mode to add a couple players. Now, one of the unfortunate news coming out of the draft was that Malik Mustafa suffered a torn ACL during the season finale against the Arizona Cardinals on January the 5th, and nobody figured they would tell anybody about it until the draft. So I'm sure that breaks all kinds of rules, but whatever. That's the Niners in the league to figure that whole thing out. But the Niners were being secretive. They didn't tell anybody. There was some gamesmanship, maybe for competitive purposes, drafting wise, so on and so forth. But they, withheld that data. And now we know that Malik Mustafa will not be there at the beginning of the year. Now, Pro Football Network analyst Sterling Z recently identified one free agent that every team in the NFL should pursue following the draft. And the guy that he pointed to for the Niners, I think, makes a lot of sense. It's Chuck Clark, the veteran safety. And basically he said, should Mustafa miss time, the 49ers need another option next to Jair Brown. Veterans George Odom and Jason Pinnock are probably better suited for situational roles in special teams, while asking fifth-round rookie Marquise Siegel to play right away might be a stretch. As such, this could be a spot where San Francisco brings in a veteran to help at the start of the season, and he brings up Chuck Clark. Now, Clark was on the Jets the last 2 years. He definitely has familiarity with Robert Saleh's scheme. We'll have to see if the medicals check out on that, because he did tear his ACL. He missed all of the 2023 season with that torn ACL and the end of 2024 with a torn pec. And I would imagine the reason that Chuck Clark is not signed right now is because of the torn pec. He did turn 30 in April, so it's not like this guy's at the end of the road. He probably has 2 or 3 good years left in him. Since he knows Saleh's scheme, he would probably have less of a ramp-up transition period than a lot of free agents. He appeared in 12 games last season. He had 69 tackles, 1 TFL, 1 sack, 2 passes defensed. He also earned a run defense grade of at least 70.5 in each of his last 3 seasons, 21, 22, and 24. So, the coverage ability is going to be a concern. Opposing quarterbacks posted a 115.2 passer rating when targeting him last season, completing 12 receptions and 4 touchdowns on 20 targets. So how much of that was the lingering effects from his previous injury? But, it's hard to say. But there's no question that Chuck Clark could be a good stopgap for the Niners. And he knows Robert Saleh's system. And if Saleh has any input in the personnel side of things, I could see him recommending a guy like Chuck Clark. So I think Chuck Clark makes sense. I think Jermaine Pratt makes sense. I think, Gerald Everett makes a lot of sense. The veteran tight end is a really underrated athlete. And I like Gerald Everett. I think that, you've got Farrell, who you signed as a blocker, and you got Kittle. So really it's just Mason Pline against Braden Willis and Jake Tongas for that third tight end spot. But I would love to bring in a guy like Everett, who's a little bit bigger, stronger, a little bit more experienced. I think this is a really underrated athlete who still has a lot of good football left. And to me, if you got Gerald Everett, then there's less pressure on any of these young receiving tight ends to actually man a spot. Also, you're covered in case of an injury. So I like Gerald Everett. I mean, he would be a guy I would be interested in. Jermaine Pratt makes sense if the Bengals release him. Chuck Clark makes sense if the injury, that the medicals check out. Gerald Everett makes sense because the 49ers are thin at tight end, and he's a guy that could be a good two-way tight end. He's a decent blocker, a better blocker than Tongas, a better blocker than Willis, probably a better blocker than Pline. But he also gives you some wiggle and some receiving ability. So Asante Samuel Jr., the corner, the former Florida State star, who's had battled some injuries and some concussions, and with the Chargers, he's still out there. He would be a very nice add, especially since you have Florida State Renardo Green there, and you could add Florida State Asante Samuel. They'd probably get along perfectly. Getting another corner would be nice. I don't think it's essential by any stretch, but it would be nice. If you look at the Niners right now, I would say you got to count to 5 when it comes to corners. 5 corners that you legitimately believe in. So let's do the exercise. Demo Lenore, Renardo Green, Upton Stout. We're at 3. So you need 2 more out of Trey Brown, Trey Avery, Trey Tomlinson, Saron Neal, Chase Lucas, Darrell Luter, and the undrafted free agent Jacob Robinson, the rookie from BYU. All you need is 2 out of those guys. So, Trey Brown was listed as the starter, so I would imagine he's probably in the running. I really like Darrell Luter's potential. I think he's got a lot of talent. Trey Tomlinson is a tremendous athlete. He's a small player, but he's a tremendous athlete. And Jacob Robinson is as well. Ran in the 4.3s. And sounds pretty good. So, Chase Lucas, special teamer. Don't know much about Trey Avery. But to me, they're kind of covered there. I mean, they'd be okay. So let's just say Trey Brown, Renardo Green, Demo Lenore, Darrell Luter, Upton Stout, Trey Tomlinson, Jacob Robinson. So right now you have 7 guys. So you don't really need Asante Samuel, but Wouldn't be bad. It's never a bad thing to have good corners and to have a depth of good corners. But that would be a little bit of a luxury. I don't think it's essential, but that would be a name that would interest me. And the last name I'm going to throw out is not a free agent, but just looking at other teams around the league and seeing the way other teams are putting together their rosters, I think one guy who's probably going to be dealt this summer, if I had to guess, is Romeo Doubs in Green Bay. Green Bay's got Jaden Reed. They got Dontavian Wicks. They got Christian Watson, albeit injured right now. You've got other guys. You got Bo Melton, Tulu Griffin. McCole Hardman was signed as a free agent. So, they have, Tulu Griffin, Bo Melton, McCole Hardman, Malik Heath, Dontavian Wicks, Savion Williams, they just drafted from TCU, Christian Watson, Jaden Reed. They just drafted Matthew Golden in the first round out of Texas. And then they have Romeo Doubs. That's 10 receivers right there. They're not keeping 10 receivers. So something tells me the Packers are going to move somebody, and I think that somebody's going to be Romeo Doubs. And if I were the 49ers, I would be at the front of that line because I think Romeo Doubs is a perfect fit for what the Niners are looking for in a receiver. He's got good ball skills. He can work the perimeter, 6'2", 204 pounds, 25 years of age. I'd be willing to give a conditional pick next year for Romeo Doubs. Or maybe there's a player on the Niners roster that Green Bay has interest in. But that would be a receiver. Just looking at them, they're for sure Golden, Reed, Savion Williams, Dontavian Wicks, McCole Hardman, Bo Melton. I would say those 6 guys are pretty likely to be their receivers. So, that doesn't count for the other guys they have. Julian Fleming, Cornelius Johnson, Malik Heath, Julian Hicks, Kadeem Telfort. They've got other guys. Also, Christian Watson at some point maybe gets healthy. But I just look at their numbers game and I think, you know what? Somebody's going to get squeezed and it's going to be Doubs. And Doubs would be a great Niner. Now, I don't think Green Bay would be in a rush to trade him to the Niners, but who knows? You never know. Maybe the Niners are willing to throw a pick. Maybe the Niners would be willing to throw a player. I do think Romeo Doubs, if you took Doubs away from Green Bay and put him on the Niner roster, and I do think he will get dealt this spring, as I said, or maybe this summer. It could be dealt in a July or August deal. But Romeo Doubs added to Pearsall, Jawan Jennings, Jordan Watkins, Demarcus Robinson, Jacob Cowing, could be a really nice player. Could be a really nice player for the Niners. So those would be the 5 guys I would have interest in if I could add some veterans. I think for the most part, I think you got to feel pretty good if you're a 49er fan about the roster. You got 4 quarterbacks. You added 2 good running backs. You're a little thin at tight end. You're a little thin at offensive tackle, but you've got some good depth on the interior of your offensive line. You've bolstered your defensive line. If you just think about it, you're going to carry 10 defensive linemen. Bosa, Elliott, Givens, Mikael Williams, Gross Matos, West, Collins, and Aquinu. That's 8 right there. Evan Anderson's 9. So everybody else between Teron Jackson, Drake Jackson, Garvin, Kalia Davis, they're all battling for one spot. So, that's not bad. I'm Bosa, Elliott, Givens, Mikael Williams, Gross Matos, West, Collins, Aquinu, and Evan Anderson. It's not bad. Maybe Teron Jackson steps up. Maybe Drake Jackson gets healthy. Maybe Robert Beal fulfills his potential. Who knows? You only really need one guy out of that group. And that's obviously before injuries. There could be some injuries, and that could thin the herd a little bit and make the defensive line a need spot. And that could happen in the blink of an eye. But today, they look pretty deep. So could they use Chuck Clark? Yeah. They could use a veteran safety with Mustafa down. Gerald Everett would be a really, really nice get as a tight end 2 who could do some receiving. Asante Samuel, in the name of you never can have enough good corners. Jermaine Pratt would be, I think, a tremendous get, a veteran linebacker who can run and hit. I would love that addition if they could make it. And then and he's out there potentially at the end of the day. The Bengals are cutting him loose. And then Romeo Doubs, a receiver that doesn't fit in Green Bay anymore, still has a lot of talent, isn't old, probably is going to get dealt for a third, fourth, or fifth round pick, at some point between now and August. If I were the Niners, I'd be that team that gives Green Bay that third, fourth, or fifth round pick, or maybe a player, and get Romeo Doubs in here. I think Doubs would be a fantastic Niner. So there you go. I think the Niners are already a contender, I really do. Are they a Super Bowl contender? They're going to need some good fortune, but there's a few veteran moves they could make before camp starts. And to me, those are the 5 that I would be interested in. Chuck Clark, Gerald Everett, Asante Samuel, Romeo Doubs in a trade, and Jermaine Pratt. All right, thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of The Krug Show. Thanks to LearnKey Upskill Academy and Claudaddy Arcades for sponsoring this video. And thanks to all of you guys for supporting The Krug Show. Give us a like and a subscribe on your way out the door. And thanks to all of you for supporting The Krug Show on YouTube.